Happy Monday, Sooner Nation. It is SEC time in Oklahoma. Oklahoma versus Tennessee, ESPN game day. Going to be in Norman, Oklahoma at the South Oval. You have OU opening up as 6-point underdogs. Yes, 6-point underdogs. Only the third time in the last 24 years that OU has been home underdogs. The other ones, you guys remember the national championship season where they had the home schedule, the gauntlet, I guess it was called, where Nebraska came into town. OU was a dog in that game. And then 2016 against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And now Tennessee rolls into Norman as one of the maybe hottest teams in the country, one of the most elite offensive and defensive statistical teams in the country. And to add to that, their head coach was on that 2000 team that beat Nebraska. He was the leader of that team, Josh Heupel, back in Norman, Oklahoma. This has it all, guys. And opening thoughts about this game.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was 10 years ago when Josh Heupel got let go from Bob Stoops, and he's went on and become a great head coach. And now his chance to come into Norman, and he's going to want to do whatever it takes to put a bunch of points up on Oklahoma. And you mentioned Tennessee a little bit. Number 2 overall total defense and total offense right now. I know they haven't played a whole lot of people, but neither have OU. And OU offensively right now is struggling. They made small strides, I think, on Saturday. They did make some improvements, I thought, but they're going to have to play much better, I think, to beat Tennessee. To me, it's going to be a low-scoring game if OU wins this. And you got to rely on your defense. This may be a game where you have to play field position and try to limit the possessions. I don't know. What I've seen from Tennessee has been pretty, I don't want to say perfect, but as close as you can get offensively. They had the NC State game where he did throw an interception, or maybe 2, I can't remember, but didn't look as good offensively, first road test. I think going into this game, my initial thoughts are this. I think Nico will have some issues. I think Brent Venables and Zach Alley will have some schemes that are going to give him trouble. I do believe that. I believe they have the players to do that, and I believe conceptually that they are really good at kind of coming up with a game plan that can confuse especially a young quarterback. I can see that happening. To me, this is going to rely on the OU offense and how they start off. They cannot start off and look like they did in the third and fourth quarter yesterday against Tulane. They need to look like they looked in the first half. If you can do that, move the ball, get some touchdowns, and play with your defense and play football, offense, defense, special teams, they can keep this game close and hopefully win it. I think that's what you got to do if you're Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think with that, Jay, time of possession still hasn't been. It was a little better against Tulane, but I mean the average time of possession for the game was less for Oklahoma than it was for Tulane. I think Oklahoma might have ended up actually winning it. It was a close margin, but the overall time, I think they might have won. Down in the fourth quarter, it was just bad. You can't be doing that. 3 and outs, again, is something that Oklahoma has still continued to struggle with at times. Against Tulane, first half wasn't as much of an issue. Second half, it was a little bit more common. Third down as well. I mean, 109th in the country a week ago. They were 131st. So making progress there, as we talked about on Sunday in the By the Numbers video. Oklahoma's continued to improve there, an improvement that they have to make. But I think it goes down to the time of possession. I mean, you're playing the number 2 offense and defense in the country. Defensive-wise, they should be number 1. The only reason they're not is because Ohio State didn't play this past weekend. They had a bye, so they still stay number 1 because they're only going off of 2 games. When you're playing a team as talented as Tennessee, I mean, preseason, entered number 15 team in the country. They're up to number 6 now. There's a reason for it. Weak schedule or not, NC State not being as good as people thought they would be, to make that kind of a jump with, a not great schedule is very telling. You got to be able to control the tempo of the game. You got to be able to establish drives, take time off of the clock. I don't think there's any reason the ball should be snapped before 15 seconds. Jackson Arnold should be communicating, listening to Seth Luttrell up until the moment that the communication is cut off. And even then, at times, run the clock down to 5, run it all the way down, because to be able to beat Tennessee, again, a home underdog, that's not something that happens a lot at Oklahoma. I mean, Jeremy talked about it in the opening. I mean, it's been a very long time since it's happened. You got to be able to control the clock.
Yeah, something I think that is not being mentioned a lot from the Tennessee side, especially, this is the first true road game that Nico's ever played in his career, and started coming into the environment in Norman, in which you expect it to be the best home environment Oklahoma's had in a long, long time. Palace on the Prairie should be rocking. Student section should be hostile. There should be some things that go towards Oklahoma's side, but in order for Oklahoma to have some success defensively, I think they're going to have to turn Tennessee into a one-dimensional team. Now, however they're going to do that, whether that's stopping the run or not allowing Tennessee and Nico to have a lot of explosive plays through the air. And I do expect to see a Brent Venables and Zach Alley, as Jason, I believe you said, scheme some things up extremely well, confuse Nico, make things hard on him at times during the game. Because now I know it's not fair to compare Tennessee to Tulane, but they did confuse the young QB for Tulane quite a bit, made things hard on him at certain points in the game. So I do expect Brent Venables and Zach Alley to do that at points in the game towards Nico as well. But I do think that also, Hunter, you did bring up a great point. Oklahoma, they're going to have to execute well on first down. They're going to have to be able to control the clock. They cannot allow the time of possession to become lopsided, because if that happens, I think this could be a game that gets out of hand for Oklahoma, and something that, one, none of us want to see happen with it being Oklahoma's opener in the SEC, and also Oklahoma's an underdog. So Oklahoma in this game, in a sense, does have something to prove, maybe to people in which we're not used to seeing Oklahoma be underdogs in games. So this is kind of maybe a little bit of a different feeling.
It's uncharted waters, but Nico has played a true road game. They did go to North Carolina State. And yeah, he did throw 2
That
picks.
was real quick, Jerm. That was technically a neutral game, but I would agree it's a road game. It was in
it wasn't
North
at
Carolina.
NC State, but it was in.
Yeah.
It was in.
Yes. Correct.
They definitely
Sorry.
had. Now, Tennessee does travel well. I will point that out. Tennessee has great fans. They'll travel. To me, this is a couple of things. Whoever the plays left tackle, looks like maybe it's going to be Sexton. Pierce, the edge rusher, is likely the best draft pick on the field. Okay, that's just it coming out this year. He's going to be highly, highly, highly drafted. That position is one to keep an eye on. Secondly, OU has to stop the running game of Tennessee. It is much easier for Nico to sit back there if they're rushing for 200, 300 yards a game. It's going to be much more. And the other thing is, he doesn't have to go through progressions a lot. He's able to hit the deep ball. He's able to play action. First reads are oftentimes open. I think for me, OU's going to have to make him go through progressions, because that's when pressure can get to him. If the first read is open, it could be a long day for the Sooners, long night. They've got to stop the running attack first. And you know BV's going to do that, guys. That is BV's MO. Make a team one-dimensional, and that's when OU really feels good about what they're going to do on defense. They've got to make them one-dimensional.
Hey, couple of things with this game. You mentioned stopping the run. What people don't talk about, I think, when they talk about Tennessee, they talk about the deep balls with Nico. Don't forget, Josh Heupel and Jeff Lebby, they run a similar offense. They're from the same kind of tree, quote, you could say. They run a lot of wide receiver screens, a lot, okay, that OU and Brent Venables worked with Jeff Lebby for 2 years, and they run a lot of quick stuff. And people want to talk about the deep balls, but pivotal on Saturday is going to be tackling from the defensive backs, from the linebackers. You cannot have a 3-yard pass turn into a 15-yard gain. Can't happen. So you got to be really clean on all your tackles. And the other thing is this. They go very quickly on offense. Tennessee does. Very quickly. Think Jeff Lebby type. That's what they do. If you're, like, for instance, the other day, OU, when the defense, if they're having to play a lot and up-tempo, that's a recipe for disaster. So, Hunter, you're right on the time of possession. And it's very get out of hand very quickly with the defense if they're having to play over and over, and Tennessee's going quick and being successful. So, but I do think the Venables being with Levy for 2 years, I think there's going to be some tendencies that obviously he's going to be aware of because he follows the game anyways. He's really good at that. But I'm just saying the familiarity with Levy and Heupel, I think there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, Jay, and real quick, something that you said was about the wide receiver screens. I would say the best thing the Oklahoma's defensive backs have been doing ever since Jay Valai got hired was they're tackling on those screens. I feel like they get off blocks extremely well. They seem to tackle well in those situations, but this is a different animal, and this is the most talent, obviously, Oklahoma's faced this year. This is the most talented team they faced the last couple of years outside of Florida State and Texas. So it's obviously going to be a test. And Jay, it is super important. Something you said is the tackling in the open field. You cannot allow them to just get major chunk plays by a missed tackle or two. And that is something Oklahoma, I feel like, has done solid the first few weeks as tackle. There's been times where I feel like versus Tulane, where in the outside zone, especially that Tulane would run, where the tackling players were overrunning plays, they were missing tackles up high. So Oklahoma, really, they do need to be very secure on their tackling.
Yeah, and to the point of tackling, I mean, it's now 2 straight weeks where Danny Stutzman's getting off the field in the fourth quarter. Don't think it's by his choice. I think if he had his way, he would be on the field in the fourth quarter. And again, when Danny Stutzman came off the field, started seeing a little bit of missed tackles. Even though the other linebackers played well, Danny Stutzman has been that good for Oklahoma through the first 3 weeks of the season. With, again, Tennessee, they're averaging about 7 yards per carry right now. Oklahoma has a top 25 rush defense, 2.2 yards allowed per carry. Something's going to have to give there. So, going to be a great matchup to see from all the storylines of Josh Heupel returning to Norman, the OU side of things, first SEC game against an SEC opponent, night game, college game day, Herbie on the call, SEC on ABC. I mean, it seems like a storybook type of writing for this matchup between Oklahoma and Tennessee.
Something's got to give. You're right. And I promise you one thing, Danny Stutzman and company all week hearing about Nico and hearing about this Tennessee team, I think that's going to light a fire. They've already got a fire lit. This is what Danny, Billy Bowman, Woody Washington, this is what all of these guys came back for, a night like this. And guys, the chess match between Josh Heupel and BV started back after the bowl games that they both played in. The chess match was starting. They won't tell you that they started looking at each other before this season started, but I promise you they did. And now they can all talk about it and figure it out. We'll see who has the other one and checkmate come Saturday. Thanks for watching the content at the Sooner Surge. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the Fan Stop at thefanstop.com, and we will see you later this week.